get a call so creepy it makes you question everything.
Yeah.
Like, are you really safe, even in your own home?
Oh, yeah.
That's the unsettling feeling we're diving into today with The Last Call,
Right.
a short story that just masterfully builds this suspense and leaves you with more questions than answers and this lingering sense of dread. So get ready, because this deep dive is going to take us on a journey through the psychology of fear and the power of the unseen.
You know what strikes me about The Last Call is how it starts so ordinarily.
Okay.
You know, we're introduced to Amit, an average guy, going about his nightly routine in his apartment.
Right.
And the city outside is unusually quiet. It immediately creates this unsettling atmosphere. And it's this juxtaposition of the mundane with the subtly eerie that really draws you in.
It's like the calm before the storm, right?
Yeah.
You get this sense that something's off,
Yes.
but you can't quite put your finger on it.
Exactly.
And then, bam, he gets that first whispered phone call.
Yes.
And it's such a simple concept, but it's so effective.
A whispered voice, especially late at night.
Right.
It taps into our primal fear of the unknown. It's like a crack in the facade of safety we build around ourselves. Yeah. You know, like a reminder that there are things out there that we can't understand or control.
Oh, for sure.
Think about it. Like, how many times have you hesitated before answering a call from an unknown number?
All the time.
It's that same instinct kicking in.
Absolutely. And it's even more unsettling because Amit's an adult.
Yeah.
Someone who logically knows it's probably just a prank.
Right.
It's like the story is saying no matter how rational we are, there's part of us that's always going to be vulnerable to fear.
Absolutely. The story cleverly forces you, the reader, to experience that same vulnerability. It's not just Amit who's feeling uneasy, it's you too. You're right there with him, heart pounding, as each instruction from that whispered voice escalates the tension. Check the door. Look under the bed. These simple commands create a sense of entrapment. The caller is dictating Amit's actions, taking away his sense of agency, which mirrors those real-life anxieties we all have about losing control.
And the chilling part is, even though Amit finds nothing where the voice directs him, it actually makes things scarier.
Right.
It's like the threat becomes even more insidious.
It does.
Because it's unseen. Like it could be lurking anywhere, even in the shadows of his own apartment.
Precisely. The story masterfully uses the absence of a visible threat to heighten the suspense. It plays on our innate fear of the unknown, the things that go bump in the night. Instead of presenting a clear and present danger, it forces our imaginations to run wild, conjuring up our deepest fears.
There's this one moment where Amit actually laughs.
Oh, yeah.
Relieved that it seems to be just a prank.
Right.
But then the voice tells him to check behind him. And, well, let's just say it's a master class in building tension.
Oh, yeah.
Creating a jump out of your skin moment.
It really is.
The author really knows how to play with our expectations.
That moment is so effective because it lulls you into a false sense of security.
Yeah.
Just when you think the danger has passed, the story pulls the rug out from under you, reminding you that you're still firmly in the grip of this unseen terror.
And then we get to the closet scene, and things go from unsettling to downright terrifying. We hear about a shadow moving inside, but the author gives us no details about what it is. Our imaginations are left to fill in the blanks.
Right.
Which is honestly way scarier than any monster the author could have described.
You're right. The power of what's left unsaid in horror is immense.
Oh, yeah.
It taps into our individual fears and anxieties, allowing our minds to create far more terrifying images than any words could conjure.
I see.
And in this case, that shadow in the closet becomes a symbol of all the things we're afraid of but can't quite articulate.
And Amit's reaction is completely visceral. He doesn't stop to think, he just runs. It feels so real, so primal, like his fight or flight response has completely taken over.
Absolutely. In moments of extreme fear, our higher level thinking often shuts down.
Oh, for sure.
And we revert to our most basic instincts.
Right.
Amit's escape is frantic, irrational, which makes it all the more believable and relatable. But here's where things take an even more disturbing turn.
Okay.
We get that phone call from Raj.
Yeah.
And suddenly the rules of the game change entirely.
Yes. That call reveals that whoever was tormenting Emmett
Right.
was already inside the apartment.
Yeah.
It's a mind-bending twist that completely shatters any sense of security we might have had as readers.
Right.
We're left wondering, how is this even possible? What kind of force are we dealing with here?
It's a brilliant move by the author because it introduces a supernatural element, suggesting that the caller isn't bound by the laws of physics or logic.
Right.
And just when you think Emmett is safe at Raj's place, things take another unexpected turn. The calls continue, but this time.
The target shifts.
Yeah.
It's no longer just Amit in danger, but anyone connected to him.
Right.
That chilling line to Raj, "You shouldn't have let him leave." It's like the story is expanding outward, the threat becoming more insidious.
It is.
And inescapable with every ring of the phone.
It's a chilling reminder that sometimes our attempts to escape danger can actually put others at risk. The caller's words suggest this perverse sense of control, a delight in manipulating not just Amit, but those around him. It's like a virus spreading, infecting everyone it touches.
And it's interesting how this twist plays on our anxieties about technology.
Yeah.
You know, we rely so heavily on our phones for connection and security.
Right.
But this story shows how easily that can be turned against us. It makes you think twice about answering a call from an unknown number, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It speaks to a very real fear in our modern world. The fear of surveillance, invasion of privacy, of the unseen forces that might be lurking just beneath the surface of our digital lives. And in a way, that's even more terrifying than a tangible monster because it feels so pervasive.
Yeah.
So inescapable.
You know, I understand the point about the unseen threat increasing suspense, but wouldn't it also make it harder for the reader to connect with Amit's fear? Don't we need some kind of tangible threat to truly feel scared?
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of what makes this story so effective.
Okay.
While there's no physical monster, the fear itself becomes the monster.
I see.
It's amorphous, ever-present, and it feeds on our own anxieties. The story cleverly uses sensory details to create an atmosphere of dread. The quiet city, the cold, breathy whisper on the phone, these elements work on a subconscious level to create a palpable sense of unease.
You're right. The author's use of sound, or rather the lack of it, is incredibly effective. That silence hangs heavy over the story, amplifying every creak and groan in the apartment. It's like the silence itself is a character, a lurking presence just out of sight.
Precisely. And then there's that whisper. It's described as cold and breathy, words that immediately conjure up images of something inhuman, something otherworldly. The voice is so crucial to the story's effectiveness. It's disembodied, stripped of any identifying features, and yet it holds immense power over Amit.
It's interesting how the caller's voice changes throughout the story, too. At first, it's just a whisper, but then there's that chilling chuckle after Amit challenges them.
Right.
And finally, when speaking to Raj, it's almost conversational.
That evolution of the voice is another clever detail.
Okay.
It suggests that the caller isn't just a mindless entity.
Right.
It's a being capable of thought, emotion, and even a twisted sense of humor. It makes them seem all the more real, all the more terrifying.
It's like they're toying with Amit and Raj, enjoying their fear and desperation. It adds a layer of psychological torment to the story, pushing it beyond a simple ghost story into something much more disturbing.
And that brings us back to the question of motive. If the caller's goal was simply to harm Amit, why continue to torment him and Raj even after he's escaped the apartment? What is the end game here?
That's the real mystery, isn't it?
It is.
And the story doesn't give us any easy answers. We're left with all these unanswered questions, which I think is part of what makes The Last Call so effective. It forces us to engage with the material, to come up with our own theories and interpretations. What do you think the author is trying to achieve with this ambiguity?
I think it goes back to that fear of the unknown we've been talking about. The Last Call isn't just a scary story, it's a reflection of our deepest anxieties about the things that we can't control, the forces we can't understand. By leaving the caller's motives ambiguous, the author invites us to confront those fears head-on, to grapple with the possibility that sometimes there are no easy answers, no clear-cut solutions.
And then, of course, there's that knock on Raj's door at the very end. Talk about a cliffhanger. It's like the story is saying, this isn't over yet. The nightmare is just beginning.
That ending is pure genius.
Yeah.
It doesn't tie things up neatly. It leaves you hanging, your heart pounding, your mind racing. It's a masterclass in how to create a truly unsettling and unforgettable reading experience. It leaves you feeling vulnerable, looking over your shoulder, wondering what might be lurking in the shadows of your own life.
So we've talked about the suspense, the unseen threat, the twist ending, but what makes The Last Call so effective at tapping into our deepest fears? Is it just the spooky whisper in the unknown caller? Or there's something more at play here?
I think it's a combination of factors.
Okay.
It's the masterful use of silence and sound to create an atmosphere of dread. It's the way the story plays on our anxieties about technology and the erosion of privacy. And it's the fact that it leaves so much to our imagination, forcing us to confront our own personal demons.
It also makes you question the safety of your own home, your own sanctuary.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly the walls feel thinner,
Right.
the shadows seem darker.
Yeah.
It's like the story is saying, nowhere is truly safe.
And that feeling of vulnerability is what makes horror so compelling. It forces us to confront our own mortality, our own limitations. It reminds us that we are not invincible, that we are all susceptible to fear and terror.
It's funny, before we started this deep dive, I was feeling pretty confident about my, handle on horror.
Oh.
I thought I knew all the tricks,
Yeah.
the jump scares, the creepy crawlies.
Yeah.
But The Last Call really got under my skin in a way few stories have.
Interesting.
It made me realize that true horror isn't about monsters or gore. It's about the unseen,
Right.
the unknown, the things that whisper to us in the dark.
And that's what makes the story so effective, isn't it? It taps into those primal fears that reside deep within us. Fears that have been passed down through generations. Fears that are hardwired into our very being.
So putting ourselves in Amit's shoes for a second, what do you think is the scariest part of this whole ordeal? Is it the whisper, the escalating instructions, the shadow in the closet, or the fact that the caller was somehow already inside the apartment?
It's hard to choose just one, isn't it? Each element builds upon the last, creating this symphony of terror. But for me, the most unsettling aspect is the complete lack of control. Amit is at the mercy of this unseen force. His every move dictated by that chilling voice on the phone. It's a nightmare scenario that plays on our deepest anxieties about vulnerability and helplessness.
It's like the story is saying that no matter how safe we think we are,
Right.
there's always the potential for something to come along and shatter that illusion.
Yes.
And that feeling of unease, that sense of being watched, lingers long after the story's over. I know I'll be thinking twice before answering a call from an unknown number from now on.
This reminds me of a time when I was home alone late one night.
Oh, yeah.
And I could have sworn I heard someone trying to get in. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside my window sent chills down my spine. It turned out to be nothing, just the wind playing tricks on me.
Yeah.
But that feeling of terror was very real.
Wow.
And that's what good horror does. It taps into those universal experiences of fear and vulnerability, reminding us that we're all just a heartbeat away from chaos.
That's a great point. It's like The Last Call isn't just a story. It's a reflection of our own anxieties about the world around us. It's a reminder that even in our modern hyper-connected world, there are still forces beyond our understanding, things that can slip through the cracks and disrupt our sense of order.
And the fact that the story ends on such an ambiguous note, that knock on Raj's door, just amplifies that feeling of unease. We're left to imagine what happens next, which in many ways is far more terrifying than any concrete resolution the author could have provided.
Exactly. We're left with this chilling question: what happened next?
Right.
And that unanswered question is, what keeps the story alive in our minds?
Yes.
Making us look over our shoulders, question every creak and groan in our own homes, and wonder if those shadows in the corner of our eyes are just our imaginations, or something more sinister.
So the next time your phone rings
Yeah.
and you see an unknown number, will you answer? And what shadows might be lurking behind your door?
I think I'll stick to texting for a while.
Probably a good idea.
But seriously, The Last Call is a masterclass in psychological suspense.
He really is.
It's a story that will stay with you long after you've finished reading it,
Oh, yeah.
making you think twice about the things that go bump in the night and the unseen forces that might be lurking just out of sight.
Well said.
And that wraps up our deep dive on The Last Call.
Great discussion.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to check out our other deep dives,
Yes.
where we explore all sorts of fascinating topics from the worlds of literature and pop culture.
Lots of great content.
And until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and maybe keep the lights on.
Sounds good.